guys, how's it going? Today's video is going to be kind of a two-in-one. First, I will be doing the Keeper book tag. This tag was obviously created by Kim Chance. I'm leaving the original video and questions linked down below as always, but she created an original tag to celebrate the release of her debut novel, Keeper. Now, I read Keeper about 3 weeks ago, I want to say, because I received a free arc of Seeker, the sequel, from NetGalley, and I had actually recently purchased this book anyways, so I thought it was a great time to read it, read the sequel, and be able to review it, which is going to be the second part of this video. Once I'm done the take, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Seeker. I'm not going to be getting into any spoilers for Seeker, but there will be a couple small spoilers for Keeper just because it is the sequel. So if you haven't read Keeper yet, the tag questions aren't about the book, they're just questions inspired by the book. But if you want to avoid spoilers for it, don't watch the very end of the video. Also, I am going to keep the review at the end pretty short and sweet. This isn't my big monthly review or anything, but I figured since I got an advanced reader copy of this book for the purpose of reviewing it, I wanted to throw a review in there instead of just posting it on Goodreads. All that being said, let's start off by getting into these questions. Question number 1, Keeper, a book you'll keep reading over and over. Now, I don't tend to reread books very often. There's just so many books that I haven't read that I want to read, so I tend to gravitate towards those. So for this one, I'm actually going with a comic book, and that is Untold Tales of Spider-Man number 20. I don't own the actual comic book, I just have it in this giant, heavy omnibus collection, so I'm setting it down and I'm going to put a picture here of the actual comic. This is my all-time favorite Spider-Man comic. If you're unfamiliar with the Untold Tales of Spider-Man series, it's stories that take place during the original timeline of like the 1964? Whatever year it was. So they can't really make any like big changes or do anything too crazy. So one of the things they do is they focus on a lot of the background characters and kind of make them more important and have things like that. I'm not doing it justice, but it's really a really fun series. So if you're a fan of the original Spider-Man comics, I highly recommend them. Question number 2, Lainey and Maggie, favorite bookish friendship. For this one, I'm going with, from the Wheel of Time series, Elaine and Avienda? See, I love this series so much, but I never talk about it because I can't pronounce anybody's name. But I love these two. This is the book where they really become like super strong and super close. I'm not going to get into very many details because this is book 9 and obviously very spoilery for the rest of the books. But I just love their bond and their friendship and just how like close and strong they become as a unit. Avienda is, you know, this strong, proud warrior, and I also love how like socially clueless she can be because she's just in such a different environment. And Elaine is, you know, Miss Prim and Proper Princess, and I found her a little bit flat in the beginning, but once these two become friends, they really bring out the best in each other, and, you know, it makes Elaine stronger and able to be more ruthless when she needs to be, and it makes Avienda more understanding and, you know, seeing the world through a different lens instead of just her tiny part of the world that she knows. I can't even gush about them all that much because everything is spoilers, but they're great. I love their friendship so much. Question number 3, which witch? Your favorite bookish witch or warlock? This one might be a little bit unexpected, but I'm going with Magnus Bane from the Mortal Instruments series. Now, it's not surprising that I love Magnus because I think everybody loves him, but I very strongly disliked this series. Because I'm a completionist and don't know how to let go of things, I've actually recently finished the series, and I don't like it. I hate almost every character. I thought the plot was kind of dumb. I don't like the writing. I really didn't like this book. Now, to be fair, I read these for the first time this year. I'm 27. This is a very young adult, and I think it's a young adult series. I know Cassandra Clare's writing has improved and grown since then. You know, maybe if I would have read these back in middle school or when I was a lot younger or a teenager, maybe I would have liked them more. I wouldn't have loved them because there's just so many things I don't like about them, but I may have been more forgiving. But at this age, I don't have the patience for stupid teenagers. And I think that really just sums it up. But that being said, I did find Magnus really fun. I found that his scenes were just fun and funny and interesting, and I love him as a character, and even throughout the series, I don't know, every time I saw him on the page, it got a little more bearable. So because he helped me get through such a tough series for me, Magnus Bane, I appreciate you. Question number 4, The Master, a book villain you love to hate. Now, I'm going to be going with the villain from Muse of Nightmares by Lainey Taylor. If you haven't read Strange the Dreamer, this is very spoilery, so skip to this time if you don't want to hear about that. I'll give you a second to leave. Okay, so my favorite villain that I love to hate is Minya, because clearly she's the villain. She's messed up and crazy and does some very, very bad things. She's so understandable. Like, you can see, like, this is very, very bad and wrong and don't do this. But as you get to know her, it makes complete sense. Like, she is shattered, and I don't want to say it's not her fault, because I don't know, I don't like saying that. She's still responsible for her actions, but it's very understandable why she's making those decisions and what her motives are, and they are coming from a good place. You know, she's a scared little girl who has so much trauma, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And especially towards the end of the book, I'm not going to give it away, and it was just so fun to be like pulled in so many different directions. And that's one thing I really love, like when an author can just pull me in so many different directions at once and just have this like huge inner conflict within the reader. It's so great, it's so much fun to read, and Minya was definitely one of the best examples of that I've read in a very long time. Question number 5, Kim Chance, a book you're glad you took a chance on. For this one, I'm actually going with Strange the Dreamer by Lainey Taylor. I had seen so many people recommending this book, talking about how great it was, hyping it up, all of that. And for that reason, I didn't really want to read it. I felt my expectations were probably going to be too high, I was probably going to be disappointed, and the more a book is hyped up, the more I assume that people are just saying it's good for the sake of agreeing that it's good. But then more and more people whose opinions I really trusted and who had very similar reading taste to mine were talking about this, and I just kept hearing about it. So I saw it at my local library and decided, you know what, let's try it out. And I loved it so friggin' much. The writing style is just absolutely beautiful. The story is so well made. The characters are incredible. There's so many layers to absolutely everything. It's just such a great story, and I'm so glad that I did end up reading it. And it also made me kind of rethink other highly recommended books that, you know, okay, maybe things are hyped up for a good reason, and depending on, you know, who's recommending them and what they're saying, maybe I can take a chance and try to read more of these like popular books, because that one went really, really well. I flew through that book, and then I borrowed the sequel and flew through that. Such great books. I'm so glad that I smartened up and decided to read them. Question number 6, Gareth and Serena, favorite non-blood or non-related family. For this one, I'm actually going with a really recent read, and that is Lynette and Mina from Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashirdaust. I really liked this book, a lot more than I expected to. It is a Snow White reimagining. Lynette is basically Snow White, Mina is the stepmother, and I really love the way it showed their relationship. Like, you see a lot of both sides, because you start off in the present day timeline from Lynette's point of view, and she's saying, you know, how much she loves and respects her stepmother. And then you also go back to a timeline of Mina when she's first coming into their life and meeting them, and how much she just hates and resents Lynette. And you kind of go back and forth between the two of them as Mina's timeline kind of catches up with Lynette's. And I really loved, again, it's going back to what I said about being pulled in all different directions by the author. I really loved them together, but it's so like hard to figure out, okay, well, who do you believe? And, you know, did she hate her and change? Does she still hate her? Is this all an act? How is she thinking? And there's just so much like back and forth between them, and throughout their ups and downs, and I'm not going to say how it ends up, because I really loved watching it unfold. But I love just watching them grow together, and I loved not only their like really nice heartwarming scenes of, you know, when they're like confiding in each other and being close, but I also loved their other scenes of when they're fighting and suspecting one another. And I don't know, I found that both were really done really well, and it was just a pleasure to read. Question number 7, Ty, favorite mysterious male character. Now I had so much trouble thinking of somebody for this one because most of the time I don't like the brooding, mysterious bad boy characters. And I had a really hard time thinking of one, so this may be cheating a little bit. So I'm actually gonna go with the narrator from A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. Lemony Snicket, I've mentioned so many times. I love him, I love his writing style, I love how he made himself as an author into this character and this being, and just, oh, love it so much. You know, he really like makes himself part of the story in some ways, and I love that he as the author almost became a character. And I love how like mysterious he is, and how like, oh, I don't know, I loved everything about it. I read all these books when I was younger. I read the unauthorized autobiography. Like, I was just so invested in Lemony Snicket. And now that I'm older, I know it was a pen name and that he's a real person, but I refuse to look into that because no, Lemony Snicket is Lemony Snicket. He is a mysterious, mysterious man. But even from the very first book, like before we even get into the book, the dedication is to Beatrice, darling, dearest, dead. Like, he just makes this whole mysterious story surrounding himself from the very, very beginning, and I was invested in the story, but I was so invested in the author. And first of all, I think that is mind-blowing marketing right there, because I would buy anything by Lemony Snicket, even if the story itself was garbage, because I want to like find little clues about Lemony Snicket. So, not necessarily a book character, but definitely my favorite mysterious male character. Question number 8, Holy Crapkittens, a book you had a strong reaction to. I'm going with the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I only recently read these. I think I read them in January, February? I don't know, but I already can't wait to reread them. And I know I said that I don't like to reread books very often, and that's why I haven't reread them yet, but oh my gosh, like just holy Crapkittens. I love Brandon Sanderson, I love his writing, I love him as a storyteller, and just these books were so good, they were so well written, and I loved so many things about these books. But more importantly, I love how much he toyed with me as a reader, from like so many different like false trails and so many distractions, and you just have no idea what's going on, and then when you finally think you know what's going on, he's just like, nope, here's this. And just throughout the entire series, I was just like so reacting strongly. I don't know, I can't even put into words how this made me feel. I was all over the place and I absolutely loved it. I loved how he could surprise me as a reader. I loved how he could just make me feel so genuinely shocked as a reader. I think my favorite moment for this was the second book, because I just, so many things I didn't see coming, and then throughout the third book, I'm like, okay, I have read 2 of these books so far. I have been with these characters for a good amount of time. I'm getting more used to Brandon Sanderson. I know, how he likes to trick me. I am prepared. I'm on the lookout. I know what's going on. And then he does one thing, and I think I follow it, and then he does another thing, and I think I follow it, and then wham! Well done, Brandon Sanderson. But highly recommend these books. I just want, like, yeah. And finally, question number 9, Magic Always Leaves a Mark, a book that had a big impact on you. I feel like there are so many books that I could have picked for this one, but I'm going back to my roots and I'm picking The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. My dad used to read these books to me when I was really, really young. We had so many different versions of the books. We had like picture books of The Hobbit. We had just absolutely everything. I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy myself for the first time when I was 4 years old. Like, these books are what made me a reader. These books are what made me fall in love with fantasy, and it was the first fantasy story I ever read. It was the first novel I ever read. The first story I ever wrote as a kid was a Lord of the Rings retelling with my dad as the main character. It was like 3 pages of fan fiction that I never finished, but I was very, very young. But these books just had such a big impact on me and my family, and they were just so impactful in every imaginable way. And those were all the questions from the Keeper book tag. Now I'm going to be moving into my review for Seeker. I'm going to avoid all spoilers for Seeker, but there might be small things that give away small hints for Keeper. So if you haven't read that book, feel free to leave. It's okay, my feelings aren't hurt. If you enjoyed what you did see of this video, don't forget to click the like button to let me know, and feel free to subscribe. I post new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, usually reading or writing related, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Alright, if you are still here, then I'm assuming that you're okay at hearing me talk about this book. I loved this book. On Goodreads, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I did take a little bit longer to read this one than I did with the first book, but I think that's because I was reading it on my iPad, because I didn't download it right to put it on my e-reader, etc. And I don't like reading on my iPad. So I think that had a lot to do with it, but as a story, I really liked it. First of all, the characters, I love them. I especially love Lainey and Maggie. Just like in the first book, their friendship is just so strong, and I love their bond. I love their bond so much. And I found this book also had more like highlights of just showing how close they were. There's especially one scene at the ending that just warms my heart so freaking much. I won't give it away, but it made me so happy. I have heard some people criticizing Maggie's character and saying that her references are a little bit too over the top, but personally I liked that, especially because it sounded like it was geek references coming from an actual geek. Like, it wasn't just an author that didn't know anything about the topic saying best Spider-Man references. Like, they really did make sense, and I found them also a little bit more toned down in this one. And I don't know, I didn't have a problem with it, but I do acknowledge that it could have been a bit over the top for some people. But I thought that this one also did a really good job of making Maggie her own character. So many times the best friend character is just a random side character throwaway, just there to make the protagonist look better, but I found Maggie really got so much of her own screen time, especially since she was a point of view character in this one. I thought that was really, really well done. And again, of course, I loved her friendship with Lainey. And on the topic of point of view characters, I loved that we started off the book with Ty. Especially because of the way that Keeper ended. I thought it was just such a good idea to just jump right back into it, see his side of the story, and just really get into the world right away. I was really invested from the very first page because of that, and I thought that was a really good writing decision. As far as the plot goes, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and it really complemented Keeper really well, I think. Hands down, one of my favorite things is that actions had consequences, and that's something that's really missing from a lot of stories, especially YA stories. There's so many things that happen because plot, or things happen and there's no repercussions for them. But this, so many things were consequences of the character's actions, and whether that was good or bad, nothing just went unresolved. And I really liked that. I thought that was really well done and really refreshing to see. I felt it made the whole story feel a lot more realistic and believable. As far as the writing itself goes, I really enjoyed it. Comparing it to Keeper, you can really tell that Kim Chance has learned and grown as an author. Now, I'm not saying that Keeper was badly written in any way. I really liked Keeper. I think I also gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. But if I had to compare the two books, Seeker is definitely stronger. I found the pacing was so much better. The build-up was a little bit better. And to be fair, I think that Keeper, most of the book was written as if it was a duology, and then the very ending was written as if it was a standalone, if that makes sense. And I know that that's just how publishing works sometimes, and I understand it, but I found this one, the pacing issues were so much better. The ending didn't feel rushed. I felt satisfied by the end of it. And I think that's something that I like seeing in books. You know, if I'm reading a series, I like to see, you know, the characters grow up and learn things, but I also like seeing the author, you know, in little ways, like improve and get better and learn different things, and I thought this did a really good job of that. Overall, I just thought this was a very good book, a very satisfying sequel. This book is set to come out, I believe, September of 2019. I recommend it, especially if you enjoy young adult, like urban fantasy type stories. And of course, if you read and enjoyed Keeper, I would definitely recommend Seeker, because it's Keeper but even better. And that is all I have for today. So thank you so much for watching, especially if you stuck around till the end. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!